2311 and Front Row Motorsports scored a massive victory in court on Tuesday. Denny Hamlin said he's going to need some time to think about 2026 and what exactly happened on Sunday. NASCAR is considering bringing back the 10-race chase. Are we for that or are we against it? And there's no conspiracy around Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series race at Phoenix. A caution had to come out. Welcome back to Break Hard. I'm Matt. Before we get to what we talked about in the intro, Connor Zilisch was supposed to test with Cadillac at the World Endurance Championship test in Bahrain, but because he didn't win the Xfinity Series Championship, he can't test there anymore. No, it wasn't like some sort of reward for winning the championship. He didn't win the championship, so he doesn't have enough FIA points to go test a car, which he'll be driving at Daytona in a few weeks from now. So Zilisch, who has one of the most diverse racing resumes out there, he has a more diverse racing resume than Max Verstappen even, doesn't have enough FIA points, so he can't go test a car that he is overly qualified to drive, basically, at this point. It's baffling. It's why the FIA licensing system is so dumb. While I do believe in licensing systems, I think there should be some common sense that's included in this as well. And I have a feeling that if this was a European prospect, that they would probably get approved to run this despite not having all the points necessary. But that's a topic for a different day. Let's get into what we want to talk about today. In a massive development on Tuesday in the 2311 Racing Front Row Motorsport NASCAR lawsuit, Judge Kenneth Bell said that NASCAR does control the power in the market that is premier stock car racing. Basically got to have his own version of a judicial mic drop in a sense. So the summary judgment that the teams were arguing for a couple weeks ago was around this and whether or not NASCAR controlled the market of premier stock car racing, and NASCAR argued that they didn't because stock car racing could be interpreted as just motorsports or racing in general. The judge says that no, premier stock car racing is in fact stock car racing. Basically, translation here saying that, oh, well, the teams could go race other places if they didn't want to race in NASCAR, basically go race IndyCar, Formula One, something along those lines, which doesn't really make any sense because you can't go enter a cup car into an IndyCar race since all these two teams own cup cars. So the judge, in this case, Judge Kenneth Bell, granted them a summary judgment saying that NASCAR controls the power in that market being premier stock car racing, which I think all of you, when I say that, you're like, well, yeah, because they're like the only premier stock car racing series in this country. It's like saying that Coke isn't the premier, Coca-Cola brand, obviously Coca-Cola, but like isn't the premier soda in the country. I would argue Pepsi probably tastes better, but I haven't had caffeine in 15 years, so I have no idea. I might not be a very good source on that. But legally speaking, this is a huge deal, mainly because NASCAR But legally speaking, this is a huge deal because it means that the upcoming lawsuit's not going to be about who has the power, but whether or not NASCAR abused the power in that market. And the teams are going to argue that they absolutely did. NASCAR is going to argue that they absolutely did not. And that's why we're probably going to go to trial on December 1st, unless, of course, they can find a settlement, which they haven't been able to do up until this point. But I think that both sides should want to settle in this case. And NASCAR had also asked for their own summary judgment, basically around the statute of limitations for some of the things that the teams were arguing, some of their evidence here. And the judge went ahead and denied that. Not going to grant them that statute of limitations. That's not going to happen in this case. So yeah, you can't be like, hey, your evidence is too old. The judge says it's not too old, so you can use that against him. And basically, one of those things is going to be the 2018 acquisition of the ARCA series, which at the time was the other national touring stock car series in the country. And then NASCAR bought them, which took away another touring stock car series in the country. So I think that's going to make their argument. That's going to help the teams out a little bit. NASCAR is going to have to make some good arguments on that side of things as well. Then the judge basically used NASCAR's own words against him, saying, quote, NASCAR made a strategic decision in asserting its counterclaim and now must live with the consequences. NASCAR wants to, but cannot have it differently on each side of the same coin. Heads we win, tails you lose. Basically saying that how NASCAR asserted itself in the counterclaim is essentially what the judge ended up ruling here around what the definition of premier stock car racing is. So yeah, basically the judge kind of said you played yourself. Now, it'll be interesting to see if this goes to trial. Both sides put out their own statements, and as you can imagine, both sides believe that they have the right argument here. And you can certainly make a case for either side, right? NASCAR doesn't believe that they've done anything anti-competitive, and the teams believe that everything NASCAR has done is anti-competitive. Shocking development there, I know. But I can see this going either way. Still, it's going to go in front of a jury. If it does, in fact, go to trial on December 1st, expect it to last about 2 weeks as well. So that'll be an interesting scenario to see how all of that plays out. This is certainly a win for the teams, a big time win for the teams. For NASCAR, it now kind of narrows down what they're going to have to argue against in court. And not that they weren't already prepared, but this is certainly going to help them out as well. At the end of the day, nobody's a winner here. Whether or not NASCAR wins, if NASCAR wins, the teams lose. 2311 Racing, Front Row Motorsports, they lose. If Front Row Motorsports and 2311 Racing win, they still lose, because it ultimately means that the charter system is probably going away. So they still lost all the money that they spent on charters. Then they're going to have to pay out their legal fees. And then NASCAR, as we know it, probably looks vastly different. All the other teams right now, super unhappy about this. In NASCAR's statement, they said that they believe in the charter system. They believe in it because the other teams that signed also believe in it. And those teams right now are terrified at the possibility of losing their charters and all the equity that they have in those charters. It's scaring off potential investors. It's having people be like, hey, we're going to wait and see how this plays out before we make any long-term commitments and things like that. So there's a lot at play here for this. Now we'll have to wait and see how it plays out. With Denny Hamlin, who spoke to the media for the first time since Sunday's NASCAR Cup Series Championship race, today on Tuesday before the NASCAR Cup Series Awards banquet, which you can watch at like 7 p.m. Eastern time on Tubi, so who even knows that this video will be out by then. But Hamlin kind of made some waves on social media because of a Jeff Gluck post where he basically said that Hamlin was non-committal about returning in 2026. Now, was Gluck's tweet a little sensationalized? Maybe in the moment, but I think he was trying to get out the thoughts before kind of putting together the full quote and everything like that. Could have been a word better? Sure, maybe a little bit, but the internet was just absolutely going for Gluck's throat, and I think that was a little bit of an overreaction. Shocker, the internet overreacted about something. Never happens, I know. But for Denny, he wasn't non-committal in terms of his return, but he also didn't sound super committed at the same time. But he did say that he has a 2-year deal. He plans on racing next year as well, but he needs some time to get over what happened on Sunday. His quote was, quote, I plan to, I have a contract to, but at this point, there's just absolutely no way I don't think about the race car right now. Yeah, I'm going to need some time on this one. Yeah, obviously, makes total sense, right? He was cruising to his first NASCAR Cup Series championship. Everything was going to line up for Denny Hamlin finally. 20 years of trying, 20 years of frustration, it was going to end. Then William Byron blows a tire down. We go to a green-white checker finish into overtime, and Denny Hamlin ends up not winning the race. And I'm sure that was an absolute, just gut punch, just a real kick in the nuts for him. I don't think he's into that kind of thing. But for Hamlin, it's unfortunate, right? Like he won a championship at the advertised race distance, but because we have overtime, he lost the championship as well. And it was a weird feeling. I mean, you have Kyle Larson acknowledging that it is a weird feeling considering he didn't lead a lap all day, finished third, and Denny Hamlin dominated the day and didn't win the championship. You have Byron apologizing to Hamlin. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then you have Denny just kind of over there with a 1,000-yard Vietnam stare being like, what happened? It's like Lewis Hamilton, 2021. His 8th championship was stolen away from him. That's kind of what this is. And yeah, I get it. I understand that green, white checker finishes exist. That, yeah, he could have taken 2 tires. I understand all of that. I understand the variables that go into this. But when you look at a guy dominate the day and end up not winning the championship in the one race winner take all format, based on the format, whether we like it or not, most of us don't, he did exactly what he needed to do, and then it was taken away from him, not by anybody's, ill intention, just a caution that happened. It had to be a caution in that moment. Larson scored the most points of the season. Larson wins the championship as well. I mean, I can't fault, nobody's upset about that. Yeah, dude was good all year. Absolutely. Tied for first in top 5s and top 10s, 3 wins on the season. Yeah, he had a really good season. But for Hamlin, I completely understand him being like, yeah, it's going to take some time to get over this one. It's never been closer to him. He said in his interview today, or his media availability, that he felt what it was going to be like to be a champion. He said with 5 laps to go, he was thinking about standing on the stage. He was thinking about what it was going to be like to be a NASCAR Cup Series champion. Then it was gone, just ripped away from him. Those dreams, everything he had ever hoped for, the storybook ending, not there anymore. And that's an absolute gut punch. Has to be demoralizing. So for Hamlin, I expect him to be back next year, right? I mean, wound is still fresh. It's still open. It still hurts. I can completely understand that. So we'll see what happens with him going forward. I don't expect a Carl Edwards situation out of this. I know the internet is running like, oh, this feels just like Edwards. This feels just like Edwards. Carl Edwards did the same thing. Oh my God, we're going to get a Carl Edwards situation here. I don't see that happening. Denny Hamlin, he's done this for too long. He's chased this dream for so long. He's really, really good right now. And I don't think he's walking away from this at the moment. I think he'll be back once again. And hey, he's still got a lawsuit to go after as well. According to Jordan Bianchi over at The Athletic, as well as Freddie Kraft on Door Bumper Clear, NASCAR is reportedly leaning towards bringing back the chase format to determine their champion. Obviously, NASCAR had a 36 race championship, or 32, 30 race, however many we had from 1972 until 2003. In 2004, they introduced the chase, a 10 race playoff, if you want to call it that. Whoever has the most points at the end of those 10 races wins. Then in 2014, they went to the current elimination playoff style format that we currently have. And since then, I think fans have clamored to go back to something that isn't what we currently have. This one race winner take all certainly hasn't been a fan favorite. It hasn't boosted the ratings, and it really hasn't given us any of those Game 7 moments that Brian France was so thirsty for when he introduced this. I think going back to a 10 race chase format does make sense. It is the ultimate compromise. I would prefer a 36 race championship. I know that's maybe not the most popular opinion out there. Well, what if somebody wins at 3 races early? Well, that's literally never happened in the modern era, but okay, continue with your fan fiction. I don't think that would happen, especially not with how close the cars are in this current format. I would prefer to go back to that with the current way that we award points as it is. Maybe give some more for winning a race. I think that would certainly go a long way. I don't need to go back to Winston Cup style points because it wasn't difficult to understand, but what we have now is just a little bit easier in terms of calculations and whatever else. So I would be fine with that. The 10 race chase, though, I think the biggest flaw of it, and I see people complaining like, oh, this wasn't very good when it happened. I think the biggest flaw of the 10 race chase was the lack of the lack of schedule changing during that time period. The diversification of the schedule just never changed. It was stagnant. It was like pond water. It never moved. And that's what allowed Jimmy Johnson to basically just focus on those 10 races, those 10 tracks rather, and just be good there. That's exactly what he and that 40-18 team did, and they went out there and dominated and spanked everybody's ass. I think if you're able to rotate a couple of those tracks in and out every single year, keep that 10 race, format alive and, fresh, I think that's going to help out a lot. How many drivers do they take? Do they go with the 10 that originally was? Do they go to 12? Are there wild cards? Do we do 16 like we currently have? Is Jeff Gordon going to get included just because? That remains to be seen. I think that would be an okay compromise to go back to that. I don't want to see a one race winner take all. I don't think that's a very good way to award a champion. And I think it does a disservice to the sport, and it certainly hasn't helped the sport out at all either. As Jeff Gluck said, it's set the sport back basically half a generation because of it. And I don't necessarily disagree. I think going back to the 10 race chase could do some benefits for the sport. I think that allows you to have a true championship battle over the course of 10 weeks, and you don't have this elimination style format where, if you have a bad round or a bad race, you could potentially get knocked out. I don't love the aspect of that. Well, you just got to perform when the lights are on, when the lights are the brightest. How about you just shut up and stop talking about that? I think ultimately what they're going to do here is the right move. And I hope that is what they end up doing if they're not going to go back to a 36 race championship, because I think it allows a driver to control their own destiny a little bit better than potentially being knocked out and not making it to that championship race and then having everything hinge on that race. And hey, if the championship battle does go down to that last race, if you're separated by 3 points going into Homestead or whatever the final race of the year is that year, good. That's going to make you appreciate those championship battles more. You know why Game 7s are so beloved and why people want to tune in for it? Because they don't happen all the time. That's the point of it. It's a Game 7 moment. It's something that doesn't happen all the time. It's why in Formula One, when you get a full season championship battle that goes down to the last race, you appreciate it so much more. Is it going to happen every year? No. Is that okay? Hell yeah, it's okay. Because it makes you appreciate those years that it does. Sometimes people are just really good. And sometimes they just kick everybody else's ass. And they should be rewarded for that. Everybody else, guess what? You did good this year, but you didn't make it. So come back next year and try again It's not that difficult of a concept to understand. We don't need to be constantly entertained with false gimmicks. I think a 10 race playoff is probably the best way to do this. The last thing that I want to talk about as well is around the conspiracy of this race and how it ended. There is a certain part of the fan base, the 10 foil brigade, they're sitting in their houses, probably trying to stay away from 5G as well, who believe that this race was fixed to make sure that Denny Hamlin did not win the championship, which is an absolutely laughable thing to suggest, because there's no way that Hendrick Motorsports, that NASCAR could have understood what all the variables were to go into this to fix this race. There's no way that could have happened. Well, only a couple people would have known. Yeah, okay, let me guess. You probably don't believe that we landed on the moon either. Yeah, because we kept 10,000 people quiet and they never told anybody. Okay. The conspiracy theories just don't make any sense. Oh, Byron intentionally cut down a tire to help his teammate Kyle Larson win the race. Why would William Byron want to cut down a tire when he was running second in the championship to help out his teammate, who at that point really didn't look like he had a shot at winning the title in that moment? Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. And then to know that Hamlin's going to take 4 tires, that Larson's going to take 2 tires, Hamlin's going to get stuck in traffic, Larson's going to blast around the outside, and no, Alex Bowman didn't just pull over for him. If you watch, Bowman just faded really bad on that 2-lap run. And then that was going to be how the championship was decided. There's no conspiracy here. The caution had to come out. NASCAR didn't throw that caution because they were trying to spite Denny Hamlin. Byron cut a tire down and he hit the wall. NASCAR had called that caution all day, and they have to call the caution in that moment. It is a caution. It warrants the yellow flag coming out. Byron hits the wall, comes back across the racetrack. Not only is he slow coming across the racetrack, dangerous, he's also putting debris down. Like, it had to be a caution, regardless of who was leading in that moment. Well, Denny Hamlin's suing NASCAR. Of course they're trying to do anything to make sure that he can't win. They have to throw the caution. That just is what it is. Is it unfortunate for Hamlin? Absolutely. Do we need to go to overtime? No, I would argue that we should just end the races at their scheduled distance. But that's not how the rules are laid out. There's no conspiracy around it. There's no grassy knoll. There's no NBA draft lottery card. This isn't 2016 Homestead. There's no controversy around this. There's no conspiracy. It was a caution. It was a caution on lap 1. It was a caution on, lap 3, whatever it ended up being. It had to come out. And it's unfortunate. I get it. I get why Hamlin fans would be upset, but there's no conspiracy. Go ahead and take the tinfoil hat off your head, cover up your leftovers, eat them for lunch tomorrow. There's no conspiracy. So let me know in the comments what you think about Denny Hamlin's comments today. A return to the 10-race chase. Would you be okay with that? Byron apologizing to Hamlin after the race, and there's no conspiracy. Like and subscribe to the channel. Follow me on TikTok @BrayCard, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook @BrayCardBlog.